Hello, new interns. We are back, and today we have Elise Frankera. Did I pronounce your last name
You
correctly?
did.
Great. Um, and I want to ask, of course, while we get started, how are you doing, Elise?
I'm doing well. It's almost the end of the work week, so it's always a
Oh,
good thing.
it's always a good thing. I love Thursdays. Well,
Yeah.
not as much as Fridays, but I get what you're saying. So, Elise is a marketing analytics intern, but that's all I'm really going to give away because everything about her and her role will be, told through the course of this interview and the questions we ask. So, the first question I want to ask you is kind of about your education history. What schools have you attended? What majors have you been through? And then kind of what are the graduation dates? What's kind of the timeline for that?
Sure, yeah. So I graduated in 2019 from Boston University. That whole thing was kind of a journey in and of itself. I went in as a journalism major and I spent a year doing it, wrote for the school newspaper. I was actually writing specifically in sports journalism, like that's what I wanted to do, and then ended up hating it and not anything particular about the job. I just felt like it wasn't something that I could picture myself doing for the rest of my life. And I'd always been good at math. So I was like, okay, I was taking my intro to stats class. I really enjoyed the professor. So I was like, okay, let's just switch gears and let's go into a stats major, something completely different. um, Ended up really, really liking it. So I graduated in 2019 and I took a little bit of time in between my undergrad, and then I just hadn't found a job right away because I wanted to take some time to myself, and
Nice.
then COVID hit. I kind of didn't know what to do. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to school. And so I went and I applied for my master's in statistics, specifically in data science at California State University, East Bay. And I'm there right now. It's a 2-year program, and I am on my last year.
Well, I feel like that was a really smart way of rolling with the punches. When COVID hit, I feel like a lot of people just collapsed and said, well, it'll have to run its course and wherever I end up is where I end up. But you decided to go back to school because I didn't even think about it. That's a very manageable, that's something that people could have done.
Yeah.
So, that's really cool that you went back.
I think one of the benefits too, like, to me, a lot of people got hit really hard with COVID, right? And I was working as a server bartender at the time. So obviously, I ended up getting unemployment.
Yeah.
And the main driving factor to my decision to go back to school was, okay, I was getting this unemployment. I could pay for school out of pocket. And so I always knew I wanted to get a higher education. It was just a question of when. And so it used to always be like, okay, when I get a job, they're going to pay for me to get my master's. But then it switched into this, well, I don't have anything I'm doing right now. I'm getting this unemployment money and I could just put that towards my master's degree. So everything worked out the way it needed to.
Yeah, no, okay. So there was a very practical aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
Well, good choice. And so moving into kind of your current role, your current experience, can you give us kind of a breakdown, not super in detail because we'll kind of go into that later, but what is your current role title? Who do you work for? Kind of who are they? What industry? And then briefly, what do you do? And I can always repeat the question. That was kind of a lot.
So I currently am interning as a marketing analytics intern with Dolby Labs or Dolby Laboratories. They are located here in the Bay Area. They're a San Francisco company, pretty old tech San Francisco company.
Mhm.
Been around since like 1960s, I want to say. I might have completely butchered that, but don't.
That's
We'll fact check it.
great.
um, and I that they are an audiovisual technology company, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's this intersection of like tech and entertainment where a lot of the product that we create is used to create films and music and movies and gaming, and it's just elevating that experience for consumers.
Awesome. And then so you fit within that company, um, kind of in what way?
Yeah, so I'm on the marketing organization. And so the team that I am specifically on focuses on mainly tracking web analytics and social analytics to support the global marketing organization.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Good to know. And part of this interview is we want to find out how you were able to secure this role, because it sounds awesome, especially when I came across it on LinkedIn. So if you don't mind telling us, how did you get into this position? Were you applying on a job site like Handshake or LinkedIn? Was it a referral from a friend, or did this company actually reach out to you, or was it another way?
Yeah, so I was applying to internships after I finished my summer internship at VMware.
Mm.
And I kind of just saw this job posting. I think it was on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure. And I kind of had some prior knowledge to who Dolby was. And I just applied. I wasn't necessarily looking for a marketing analytics specific position,
Mm.
but I didn't go through a referral or anything. I kind of just found it on LinkedIn and thought, I might as well try to apply. And then I did. Sorry,
And
this sun is like having this weird thing and I don't know how to fix
I
it.
know, beating down on you, but it's
Yeah.
fine. We can see you. Um, so you said you weren't specifically looking for it. It was, there's recommendations, so I'm sure that's how it came up.
Mhm.
But were there key searches or key positions that you were looking for, specifically?
I think
Or
I had applied to so many jobs before that I kind of just it fed into my algorithm, but I was looking for anything like analytics. Because I'm so like stats heavy, that's what I was looking for. And my previous experience at VMware was more like very data science heavy and it was very like tech heavy. I was
uh,
looking for a role that was more, still had that integration of my stats major and something analytical, but still being a more people facing role. I didn't want to do something that was so like data heavy. I wanted to have that intersection between like being able to have communication with people and using my analytic skills to kind of feed into that position.
yeah, and because I didn't even think about how there's roles that involve data that you might be whatever in a cubicle 100% of the time and not even see people. And I'm sure people love that, but I like that you were also interested in that communication aspect.
Yeah. I mean, it was all, I think that it took some time to figure out, but it was always something that was important to me, just
Mm.
because I'm a people person. I would like to say I don't want to just be like sitting in like writing code all day.
Right.
Even though that was what I thought I wanted to do, I think just having that experience of working at different internships made me realize like I need to be in a role where I can be more like front facing.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you actually had previous internships. I'm hoping you can tell us also, what were the internships that you feel kind of got you the interview or got you this role? What experience did you have coming into this role, and was it
Yeah.
valuable?
So I had two prior experiences before. One was with a cybersecurity company named Carbon Black, and they were based out of Massachusetts. They got acquired by VMware after my
Oh,
internship. And so I
okay.
think that just kind of segued my application when I went to apply for VMware because none of these, I think I just was the person that got lucky who
Uh-huh.
just ended up getting the interviews. Um, and I think it was a really strong selling point that I had previously interned at Carbon Black for VMware to want to welcome me back again.
Mhm.
And then, of course, being VMware is a very like well-known company here in the Bay Area. So I think that experience alone just kind of made it so that it was easier to get the job interview um, at Dolby. But of course, that's like a very privileged way to get it. You know, I do understand the need to network. I understand the need to like go through referrals, because I didn't get the interviews for a really long time. Like I got the
Oh,
Carbon Black internship because I knew someone that worked there. And then that's how that whole thing segued. But it is hard nowadays to just raw apply to places and expect like a call back. Like you really need to like get your foot in the door somehow, whether that be through um, like networking on LinkedIn or like referrals from people that you know that work there, something like that.
and yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, it takes a lot, and I definitely appreciate people who use all the opportunities they have. So when people mention they have referrals, some people might be envious, and okay, so what? But I love that people actually use, that's a skill that you have to develop, or knowing people. Um, so it's cool that you actually, part of what started this journey of this domino effect of certain well-known companies happened. There was a referral. Of course, I'm sure you were raw applying too. Um, how many would you say? What volume of just applications had you sent out? If you could kind of guesstimate like a number, but before the one that you have currently.
Hundreds, like
Hundreds.
hundreds. I would want to say there was like a time period where I feel like I was so beaten down about not getting a job right after graduation that I kind of just like kept sending,
Uh,
you know.
yeah.
And obviously that's not the right way to do it. I think that there is importance of like finding companies that you really really want to work for, learning
Mm,
about them, and then curating your resume and your cover letter however
yeah.
much it matters. People argue for or against cover letters, but curating your resume to fit what they're looking for. So I think that part of it with me was just kind of like a learning experience of um, knowing that I can't be taking the short route to things, and needing to actually put in the time and put in the work to work on your resumes for each application, to really research the places that you want to work for, reach out to the people that work there, use your network, use your alumni network, all of
Mm.
those things.
Yeah, and wow, the fact that you persevered through hundreds, I thought that I applied to a lot, like in the like 50s range,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I dealt with the same thing as you, is why aren't people responding? But it's a large percentage of those raw applications are to companies that I really didn't know anything about, and I'm just throwing out my uncurated piece of paper at them. And so there's definitely something to taking extra time. And so hundreds, are you referring to over the course of all your applications or specific periods? Because I was wondering about the period of time and applications that you sent out before Dolby Laboratories. Did it also
Yeah,
require
I think it
hundreds?
was mainly that. It was mainly of that time period, because I think I after I finished my internship at VMware, I think I mainly applied to only like 10 places, because it was fall semester. I was like, I'm going to be in school. I wasn't really serious about trying to find an internship. It just so happened I came upon this one, and it was like a blessing in disguise, especially considering I love what I do now. I love who I work for. And yeah, so before then, before my experience with VMware, I was really kind of just hammering through those job applications, sending it through.
Well, that's awesome because it did pay off. Um, cool. Well, this is something that if you can share what you can, of course. But I'm curious about the onboarding process with Dolby. So, what was kind of the timeline after you sent in your application to them? How long did it take for them to respond back, or how many interviews were there, and how long until they said yes, you're in, we'd love to have you?
It was pretty quick. I think this process was streamlined because it was pretty last minute. So um, I want to say that I submitted my application maybe in August, July or August.
Mm.
And then I got the interview mid August. And then I I had 3 interviews, and then
Wow.
immediately after the last interview, they called me and offered me the position. And then I started the second week of September. So it was pretty quick.
Oh, awesome.
Um, yeah, and I think it was because it was so close to when like that fall cohort was going to begin that they needed to find someone to fill the position quickly.
Mhm.
So I think it was a I'd rather have it be quick than be left waiting and like, oh, are
Sure.
you
Oh,
gonna call me back? Like,
it's like the anxiety starts, but then after a while you forget, and then they
mhm,
come out of the blue. And oh, and this is a full-time or part-time
internship.
internship?
Oh, it's a full-time internship. Yeah.
Got
Yep.
it. Um, from your perspective, what would you say is the reason or reasons that really earned you the role from the hiring manager's perspective? Why did Dolby Laboratories decide to hire you? Of course, this is, it's your own opinion. We
Mhm.
wouldn't know for sure, but was it kind of, if I can push you in a direction, was it really experience heavy? They really only cared about your experience for the most part, or was personality or your vibe, we could say, did that play a significant role?
I definitely think my personality did play a big part in it. I think that just in all um, scenarios, all job applications and interviews, they want to find someone that fits well with the team. So I do think that had a lot into play. And I think it, I think my experience did come into play a little bit as well, just because my, this is something that was actually told to me. They say it's easier to teach marketing to someone that already knows analytics versus to teach analytics to someone that knows marketing. So I think just because I had a strong like analytical data background, it would have been easier for me to pick up on marketing things, knowing that I had never had a marketing experience before, versus the other way around and having to teach all of these new tools and like statistical analyses to
Right.
someone that it came from marketing.
Well, that totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, no, and I'm glad you had that stats background. It totally came through. I couldn't say the same for myself. I'm definitely a marketing major, so I think if we were applying at the same time, I might have been beaten out. But anyway,
Honestly, there's so much about marketing that like I'm learning every single day, and I honestly wish that part of me was like, I wish I had more experience in this. Like I wish I knew more because I would have been able to do the job more effectively. Like there are certain things that I think that's just with any job though. Like there are things you're going to pick up on the job that you would never have learned in school. So I do give some, a lot, not some, a lot of credit to the people in marketing, especially because I've never been a creative person. I mean, being someone with a math background, like you're very logical in the way that you think. And so it is harder to be a creative person and have these new ideas and these new ways of doing things versus someone that kind of does a process. And I feel like a lot of data oriented people take things as processes. So I think there's pros and cons to a lot of it, but of course um, it's always going to be a learning experience for everyone.
that's true. And on behalf of all marketing majors, I appreciate what you just said. But to be fair to you also, you mentioned maybe you feel like you've lacked in creativity, but I know you started with a journalism
Yeah.
major that totally speaks to, and also just speaking with you now, your personality, you're definitely, in my opinion, more extroverted. And so I think, your temperament, it seems like it would align with any new marketing concepts or strategies. So I think you have the best of both worlds, honestly. But speaking about your position, now I kind of want to go into really what is it that you do and explain in kind of a way where most people, the general public, could understand. Um, I'll ask this first though. Would you say that your role is more of a support role or a project oriented role or both mixed, this internship?
It's kind of a mix of both. Um, I do a lot of like individual projects, but I do have like ongoing, recurring um, assignments that I work on and deliverables. So
Mhm.
it is just a mix of both.
Okay. And could you give us kind of an overview of, it might be hard because if you probably do a lot and it's hard to name everything, but an overview of what you do, sort of maybe what are some of the support tasks, the recurring ones that you mentioned that you have to do, and then what are the more project oriented ones with like kind of an expiration date on them?
Yeah, so I handle a lot of things social listening. If people don't,
I'm not familiar
yeah,
with that.
if a lot of people aren't familiar with it, it's just kind of scraping the internet and like
Ooh,
analyzing social media posts. I made that sound a lot harder than it is. It's not scraping anything. You're just going through and looking at social media posts of things that are related to the company, in order to find any themes or topics that could be of interest. For example, if there are any issues with our product, if people are more excited about a certain initiative or marketing campaign that we have, it's reading through those posts and using it as more of a qualitative analysis.
okay.
So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect that I have is more web and digital analytics, which kind of encompasses using Google Analytics to send out reports just to be able to um, allow the marketing team to make choices on site optimization or campaign optimization. So that's a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis, is kind of juggling those two things, where I have the social listening that's more of the um, it's more of the like ongoing thing,
Mhm.
whereas the analytics side, web analytics side, that's like more project based.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love you made it easy for me and you kind of simplified it into two parts. Some people have explained it and it's like in five sections and I'm trying to like keep tabs on everything. But well, I'd like to go in on the social listening aspect. So while you're researching these things, are you do they have kind of a special collection software or anything to scrub the internet, or do you have to go out of your way and
Oh
you
no.
keep word searches? How do you kind of conduct that?
We use a tool. It's our social listening tool, and it kind of we create queries using our keyword specific keywords that we need, and then we save those queries. It pulls up all of the public data, so like there are certain APIs that aren't available.
Oh,
So it's any like public posts we're able to see.
and then you do the legwork and you need to really evaluate those.
Yeah.
That's
There's a
cool.
lot of like scraping through things that aren't relevant at all. So a lot of my time is allocated kind of filtering through those posts that just aren't relevant at all. So like there's a sale with our
Oh,
product, and it's just like,
yeah.
stuff like that.
I'm glad there's a software that generates queries because I was trying to think, man, I how would I keep track of all the websites going through the 100 tabs Google shows you, whatever it says, a billion results in like 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. For the second part of what you mentioned, I'm still. You said it's more data and web design. I'm a little confused on that portion of it. Could you go more in depth and maybe explain, maybe give an example or kind of really get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, so for like the web analytics, I think a good example would be if we have a campaign, let's say, and then we have a certain URL linked to that campaign. We want to see what the trends are to our website or whatever the link is, and any trends that we find that are related to that campaign. So let's say campaign started yesterday. We want to see any metrics that are around that specific date. So let's say if there's a volume spike, how many sessions, how much time people spent on certain pages, and
Mhm.
where we can best, I guess, sell our product, or where we can best utilize these pages to allow users to get more information about what Dolby does.
Okay, and these, I think you said it, I may have missed it. These pages that you are essentially, you're tracking traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
where, who? are these pages from your own company website or?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Cool. So like really, really optimization of your interface, but more so in a way that generates traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Well, honestly, I that position does sound fun to me.
It is
In
fun. I love it.
That's cool. Um, well, that was the big question. I have a couple more thoughts that I'm hoping you can share. And the first is, what is the most valuable thing that you have learned in this internship?
I think for this specific internship, the most important thing for me is working with a team, specifically a manager that supports your growth. Um,
Mm.
I obviously had been at Dolby for a while now, so I've been there for coming up on a year. And I think that wouldn't have been possible if she wasn't pushing me so hard to stay or to find projects for me that can ensure that I'm able to stay on for as long as possible.
Mm.
Obviously, if you are kind of on as an intern and you're kind of just doing like supporting work that the team can take on their own and you're only doing it for the benefit of yourself, um, that paints a whole different picture versus if you're actually there supporting the organization. They want you to stay. So I think having a manager to back me on that and find me different projects to be able to work on and be understanding with me having school and working at the same time, is the most important thing that I've learned because I don't think I've had an experience like that in the past before.
I would say that that's maybe an underrated part of working or interning is, having someone who, I mean, I get you kind of described in a way like a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
partially. So yeah, that's definitely important. And if you had any quick advice or advice in general for people applying to similar internships like the one you're in and internships in general, what would that advice be?
I think the main thing is to be genuine to yourself. If you don't know something, say you don't know something. I think that all employers value honesty. And I feel like, of course, you do want to try to showcase yourself as much as possible. But I think that people can tell when you're being ingenuine. So stay true to yourself as much as you can because that reflects in everything that you do.
Yeah, no, I people can definitely um, they can sense when someone's being insincere.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell, and it comes off in the engagement. So thank you for that advice. I think it's really valuable. We will wrap it up here, and I just want to say for everyone reading, listening, however you are consuming this, we will put Elise's LinkedIn or whatever other links that she's interested in sharing down below somewhere. And so you could definitely find out more about her there. And I just want to close and say thank you so much, Elise, for doing this, for sharing your experience. I think it was very interesting and it'll be valuable for a lot of people.
Thanks for
So,
having me.
of course, you take care.
All right. Bye.